Exactly 10 minutes to the top of the hour. Welcome back to the program. You're still on Good Morning Kenya. From Matters Education, we now move to parenting and adoption. My guest is here to help us understand all about that, the process, the legalities. At what point do you even decide you're going to do this? She'll be talking to us about this and so much more. That is Lydia Ndiho, who is a wealth manager. Welcome to the program, Lydia.
Thank you, Doreen.
This is, I was just telling you off air that this is one of those conversations that there's really quite a lot
yes,
to talk about. There's quite a lot. But before we get to even the nitty-gritties of understanding at what point do you decide, if you even decide, or sometimes it's circumstances, let's just start by understanding your story. Where did this emanate from? Because you are a parent,
yes.
You adopted.
Yes.
So where did this begin from?
I think for me it was the struggle to have a biological child. Mm-hmm. So I have PCOS.
Yeah.
Something that I was told is easy to fix, mm-hmm. and that I would be pregnant, like this.
Mm-hmm. What's PCOS first?
So PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome. It ranges from, it gives you many issues, but basically it's hormonal imbalances, it's not ovulating. So you can't get pregnant if you're not ovulating. So it affects about 20% of the people, and is one of the biggest causes of infertility.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So having been diagnosed with PCOS in 2010 and told, this is not going to be such a challenge, you'll be fine. So accepting that the one thing that, as I was telling you, women do easily is give birth, mm-hmm. and realizing that it's not going to be as easy as you think. And then now starting the journey, the fertility treatments, the different options that the doctors will give you. So after about 6 years, now we needed to make a decision.
Mm-hmm. Let's just backtrack a bit, because one of those symptoms, I understand, sometimes it could be even missing your monthly period.
Yes, yes.
So while you're growing up, even as a teenager, young adult, this was just coming normally?
What I had was heavy menses. Okay. Very heavy menses.
Did this worry you at some point?
No, because most people will tell you, you'll be fine. As in, once you have a child, that is like the story I had the most. Mm-hmm. Once you have a child, the heavy menses go away. The pain goes away, because it was very painful, mm-hmm. heavy menses. Mm-hmm. And so it would be a range of, like, the first 2 days, even in high school, I'd have to go see the nurse for painkillers. So, but every doctor never thought there's something really wrong. To them, it was teenagehood. It will get better when you get a child.
And your hormones are just acting up.
Yet my hormones literally are acting up. Because at some point, you're like, am I normal? So I remember we went to see different doctors, and for most of them, they'd be like, once you have a child, it will even out. The pain will ease. But later on is when I discovered, when you're having heavy menses, that you're not too sure what's going on, see a gyna. Testing has become a long way now, so see a gyna. Yeah.
In hindsight, when you think about it, Lydia, I know sometimes, things of nature and even how things are, you really can't quite reverse. But in hindsight, do you feel like maybe if I would have gone to a gyna as opposed to just seeing doctors, it would have helped the situation? Did you ever, even before you got to deciding, okay, let me adopt?
For me, I thought, at least we know what the problem is. Okay. That was my view. We know what the problem is, we can fix it. And the other thing we're really good at is being Dr. Google. So we had Googled the symptoms. So, really, for me it was, I'm glad now I know what the problem is, we can fix it. As compared to, oh, shikes, what did I do wrong? It was, I think my mindset was different. It was, now that I know what the problem is, we can fix it. Yeah.
So at this point in 2010, now you are fully diagnosed that this is actually why you are having heavy menses. Yes. This is why they were prolonged for some time. This is actually the condition.
Yes.
And you see, for some women, sometimes it sort of comes as a pregnancy centers that, this is it. If you ever think of getting pregnant, like literally, this is a no-no for you.
Yes.
What really came through your mind, much as the doctor told you, Itaisha too, you might actually...
I think it's shock. Then you realize, okay, now I have answers to what I've been going through, like you have crazy mood swings, especially during your periods, and you're always like, why am I this? I mean, moody.
Extra
than most people. Like, you're really moody. So I'd be like, okay, now this answers a lot of questions, but you also feel, gosh, isn't it meant to be easier? Because I mean, getting pregnant is meant to be easy.
Yes.
I think you grow up with people around you having children easily. Like for me, I don't remember a point where I knew someone who's struggling to have a child. Most people would have.
So there's no history of that, even from your family?
Family, yeah.
Even relatives, just extended?
Extended family,
there was nothing of that sort?
There was nothing of that sort.
So this came strange to you?
Yeah, it was very strange. I was like, okay. Because most people have kids easily, you know. You decide, oh, now I'm on child number 4, maybe perhaps I need to stop. But it was never, I'm struggling to have a child. What I'd seen a few is miscarriages, but never, I can't get pregnant. Yeah.
So at first you were really shocked. Yes, the doctor's words looked affirmative, that yes, it's PCOS, but yours is not really that bad. But still there was some bit of doubt within you.
Yeah.
Okay. So now this is 2010.
Yes.
Before you actually go to adopting in 2016.
Yes.
Walk us through that journey between 2010 and 2016. Did you really try?
Yes, so for me it was continuous trying. I'm those people who I do not give up.
Giving up is never an option.
No, it is not. We must do it. So it was doctor after doctor, referrals, because now what happens is, once they give you a diagnosis and you don't get pregnant within an year or so, they refer you now to the infertility person, the infertility doctor. So your regular guy now will try what they know. Then they'll be like, okay, this now you go see my professor, go see so-and-so who their sub division of medicine in Ghana is infertility. So now I was referred to a doctor like that. So we did fertility pills, we did injections, so we had done quite a bit. So now it reached a point where the doctor was like, let's try IVF. Now PCOS and IVF, that's a very tricky situation.
Why is that?
Because we produce too many eggs. So you can go into some shock syndrome.
Okay.
So for me, I read the risks. I was like,
it's not what
let me just take a pause now and think through what my other options are. Am I willing to take this risk? I think that was what in my mind was the question. Am I willing to take this risk for my health? Because also at that point, your health has also taken quite a beating because of the fertility pills. So you have gained a lot of weight, you are unhappy because you're moody all the time. You inject yourself a lot because injectables, you have a schedule for how you inject yourself. So it's draining. It's emotionally tiring and draining. So I think in now beginning of 2016, I was like, let me take a break for a little while. Let me look at other options.
So this actually is already 6 years of trying.
Just trying to get this very elusive baby. So I was like, let me take a break.
Before you actually even go further to 2016, let's just still stick within the 6 years. I mean, we're living there. We are Africans.
Yes.
Kenyans very specifically.
Yes.
And so we have our African culture.
Yes.
You know, you're married there, you're having your partner. What is even your family saying at this point? And how is this impacting you as a person? Interesting
enough, from not our extended family per se, but the family we interacted with, most of them didn't have comments or didn't ask questions. I think they were like,
okay,
they were like, are we sure we want to venture in and find out what is really going on? Because you know now you have to deal with the emotions. And plus, I don't think I gave people room. I was always really moody. I did have energy. So if you came at me, I knew I'd just come back at you.
You know, the African mothers, whether you're moody or not,
they will still ask.
Yeah,
so the people now, the pressure came from one, internally for both of us, because we really wanted a child. And then our extended, not that cluster of family, but now the bigger cluster that would ask you.
Extended.
Yeah.
Would like uncles, aunties?
Like your
further than that?
Further than that, because my uncles and aunties, and he's uncles, aunties, and cousins, and my cousins never asked too many questions. I'll be like, you're not pregnant here. What's happening? Oh, I'm struggling. Okay. I mean, not too many questions. But now the other extras. This one's, you go for a function. Hey, Kwani, what's going on? Then, you know, I'll tell you, bado ziko kwa miguu, hajakuja. You know, but there's even a time now I took two. If you ask me that question, I tell you, instead of asking me, have you asked God? Please go and ask God this story. Don't ask me. God will give you an answer. Because I'm like, I'm tired of answering this question. So it was more the extended, like, you know, those people who are in your circle of friends, those are the ones now who will ask you the strangest questions. But, and then now, like, my grandmother would always be like, madam, what's going on with you? And then she'd, hey, the solutions I had from, especially that age group in this 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Let's start with those strangest questions, then you tell us the solutions in which they were giving you to have a child.
So I'd have the strangest comments, especially now when I started talking about my experience, because I was like, no one is talking about this, and it's really stressing me. So me, I'm those people who will share. And I would share, and you'd hear, so now, those drugs, they're not the ones causing you even more effect for not getting pregnant. I'm like, the drugs are helping, they're not hurting, but okay. Or someone would tell me, perhaps maybe you need to stop thinking about it. It will happen. You're the one who is overthinking things. I'm like, overthinking things? The others will tell me, you know, the strangest ones were, I need to go do a ritual at home and...
Got to that point?
Yeah, I was given stories. Go do a ritual, it will cleanse. There's some herbs where you're looking at that herb, you're being told to drink, you're like, that is not entering my mouth. There's some I tried.
Like the rituals? The herbs?
No, the rituals, no. I was like, these rituals, first I don't even know why we're doing the ritual. Okay, I know why we're doing it, but what's the... As in, I was like, I don't understand the point of this. But the herbs, there's some I drank because I was like, okay, this makes sense. The others who offered their brothers, their siblings, I'm like...
Taking the problem is your partner.
Yes. So if you and my brother hook up, you get a child, but he'll pass it off as your partner's child. And your problem will be solved. I'm like, really? This is where we've come to in these suggestions of life. So I think that I think was the ones that I was like,
they're just too off.
They're too off. They're just, I'm like, The rituals one was really off. That one I was like, because I was being told you break a pot with some water that you fetched, and then some guy will come and do purifying things, and then I'm like, first, I grew up Christian, so me, I've not seen these rituals being done anywhere. So, so yeah, there were many suggestions.
So, I mean, all this is happening. Reasons are being given here and there, and as you've said, not from like the close family, from the really extended, not so much close. They're giving you suggestions and solutions. What impact is this rubbing off of you?
I think first to get very, very annoyed. It's a lot of anger. Because already, remember, you're dealing with the fertility treatments. You're dealing with scheduling your life around...
Here you're hoping to actually get pregnant as a woman.
Yes. So you're scheduling your life around, when am I doing injections? When am I going to see the doctor? There are times you have to go for a scan in the morning at 7 in the morning. You know, so you're scheduling your whole life between work and getting a baby. That's your schedule. There's also life, weddings, whatnot. Things are happening, yeah? So when such people come and give you suggestions, what happens first is you feel deflated, because you're like, of all the things you could come and tell me, you could not come and give me an encouraging word, you know. Just come and tell me it will be well. I appreciated those ones, because literally they have nothing else to tell you, which is fine. So I've opened up to you to tell you my struggle. The solution you've given me is so out there. I'm thinking, So first it's anger, then you're deflated. You're like, I'm not sure about what is going on with this world, but yes. So I literally telling someone that during that period of time, I learned to live a day at a time. Literally, a day at a time. Because when you finish the day, you're like, okay, today it wasn't too bad. We've not had strange things. It's a good day.
Today is a good day.
Today is a good day. And trust me, if you talk to women who've struggled to get babies, we hear very strange things.
There's quite a lot out there.
Yeah, there's quite a lot.
A lot of ideas and suggestions as to why.
Yes.
All right, so then now 6 years later, all this has happened. Now you're actually realizing and you're even getting peace within yourself. This is it. I have tried, you know, the various forms you've told us, the injections, the drugs, the doctors, gynae. And I realize, wait a moment, this actually can't happen. How did you decide within yourself, so now I am adopting, just before I get to the process?
I think for me it was a lot of reflection. So my partner is actually the one who came up with this idea of adopting. And I was struggling with it because I'm like, am I giving up one dream? Am I actually giving up on this dream? It's been my entire focus of life for the last 6 years. I have focused on one thing, getting a child. That's it. That has been my main goal in life. Not going on holiday, not
even enjoying life.
No, getting pregnant, carrying this baby full time. So all of a sudden now we have to reset because it's not happening. And I'm like, given also the amount of money we've spent, so you pause and you're like, okay. So I remember just going through the process of accepting that this may never happen. It's not at it may, if it happens one day, fine. If it doesn't happen, it's also okay. But getting to that point where I say, I'm going to be okay with it. And then 2, ensuring, not feeling like I'm trading one dream for another. Accepting the situation, that I can be a mother through other ways. It's not just this. Remember, my mind is focused on this one way. So now just saying, I can be a mother in other ways. But just that process of thinking through it, accepting, processing the emotions of feeling like, gosh, I failed. I've given up.
Like you failed?
Yes, you feel like you failed. Because truthfully, there's a book I like telling people to read. It's called Even the Cheerleader is Pregnant. As in, there is no one, there's a point in time where everyone around you is pregnant. Especially when you go to the village and you find the teen moms, your age mates, even women older than you are all pregnant. As in, it's like a season. And then you're like, maybe I'm then drinking from the wrong pot of water. As in, you know, literally everyone is pregnant. That's when you're like,
something could be wrong.
Something could be wrong. As in, you just feel, gosh, the one thing that my body is meant to do easily, it can't do.
The body has failed you.
Yeah.
You feel the body has failed
you. Yes.
All right. So then, how long did this take? I mean, just going by what you're telling us, that now you actually got to a point and you realized it's not happening anymore for you. You have tried all that you think you could have tried. You have spent your resources, quite an amount full, so to speak. So then how long did it take to just reconcile within yourself, accept that this is it? This is it.
It took me about 6 months.
Just to decide?
Just to decide.
And you went through for 6 years?
Yes, that we are going to do this in a different way. It took me about 6 months to just accept that this is not going to happen. Then after that, now is when I was like, okay, so I've been told about this option called adoption. Let's figure out how it works and let's find information on it. But it took me a while to process, to just say.
Took you a while to process on everything.
On everything.
So then how does this process look like? So this is now 6 months later. You have decided you can't get pregnant through the biological way, but you can be a mother through other forms.
Yes.
Talk to us about the process of adoption.
Okay,
At what point did you start from?
So for me, I did my research and found out in Kenya, adoption starts with an agency. So you have to go to an agency and get paperwork for whatever for the adoption. You can't just like go to a children's home and no. So you go to the adoption agency. So went to one and we got the paperwork. So you fill in quite a number of forms. I usually say
this is now 2016 still?
2016 in November.
Okay.
Yeah, October, November, because it took us about 2 months to just fill all the paperwork, do the medical tests, and then just get the whole file together and return it back to the adoption agency. After which, now we got, they come and vet you, so you'll meet with a counselor and a social worker, just to confirm that what you wrote on the form is correct, one, and two, you're mentally ready to adopt. Because sometimes you can be thinking it's a very good idea, but you're not ready for it. So we met with them, we talked. Then now it goes to a vetting committee to confirm that you can adopt. So once the vetting committee says yes, then now they look and place you with a child.
So this takes like around how long?
For us, from the time we returned the forms to when they said yes was November to February 2017. Then now we waited from February. We got our daughter in July.
In July, this is now July of 2017.
Yeah.
You just earlier on said that sometimes someone may not be ready.
Yes.
How is that? I mean, like, let's take you as case in point. At this point, you've already gone through the hell and high waters. You've decided. So this is like 6 months. Some could even take a year, 12, even 10, depending on how someone is wired. So then how would you not be ready? Just explain, how does it work?
So for some people, you might be okay with the idea of adoption, but mentally, you're not. You're like, you have an sometimes we have this attitude of, I'm helping this child. No, you're not helping the child. The child is just fine. However, it needs to be at a point where you know that you're going to accept this child, that this is your child, that she may not have been born of your tummy, but this is your child. Some people may never accept that, which is fine, but for the social worker and for the counselor, then that person should not be able to adopt. But for most people, I think we openly love children. I think it's an African thing. We just like children. So I don't think there are many people who struggle with it. But that's like the main point is for them to make sure that you're going to accept this child. This child will be fine in your home and will thrive. Yeah.
You talked of an adoption agency. I mean, we are living in a country where children could almost be everywhere. Could be in the streets, depending on circumstances, could be in orphanages, could be even sometimes just left in the community. Maybe the parents are incarcerated, you know, something just might have happened here and there. So then you can't go to the orphanage and just request that I want to. How does this one work? So the adoption agency makes sure that the child that is in the orphanage is free for adoption. Again, there are very many kids in orphanages that are not free for adoption. Case in point, if you're incarcerated, you give birth in prison, that child is not free for adoption. So they might be in a children's home because no one else picked the child from, no one else in your extended family could take care of your child, and you're in prison. So that child is not free for adoption. It might be a child whose parents are known, but just hold it there. Let me understand this. Maybe you can elucidate on it a bit further. So this is a parent, and sometimes could even be parents, both incarcerated. And just as you rightfully put, no one in the extended family, you know, was available or didn't want to pick the child. So how is this child then not free for adoption? The parents are not there. The uncles, aunties, community, they're not there for the child.
Because most times that person is also not willing to give up their parental rights.
Much as they're not available,
they don't want to give up their parental right. Or for example, you're going to be in prison for maybe 4 years. So you're like, after 4 years, I'll pick my child. And so they don't give up parental rights to this child. Because for the child to be adopted, the person must give up their parental right to this child. So those ones won't. Which other thing? Other times, this child is known the origin. But either the mother is not psychologically fine, they have a mental health case issue, so the child is put in the home until the mother is able to bring up the child. There are cases where the child was left with the grandparents are too old, the home takes over and brings up the child. But you'll find that this child every holiday goes home to see the grandparents.
Much as they are in a
children's home.
Children's home, yeah.
Or a care facility, as they're called. So it depends. So it's the work of the adoption agency to protect you as an adoptive or potentially adoptive parent, to make sure that you also don't bond with a child who is not available for adoption. Because you can imagine the heartbreak.
This is like a double second.
Yes.
So then you're saying that, you know, a parent who cannot give up their adoptive rights, so this would potentially make the child not free for adoption.
Yes.
So in the event or in cases where children from the streets or the street families or the street children, then how does this one go? How does this work?
Unless that child is collected by the cops somewhere on a street, in a gutter somewhere, a lot of the street families take care of their own children. So those ones have parental rights. The same way the street mother has the same parental right I have.
Okay.
So the child cannot be taken from them. Because if they prove that they have capacity to take care of their child, you can't take their child from them. In Kenya, the law is that the child stays with the parent or the original family as much as it can possibly be facilitated. If we now move it to adoption, adoption is usually the last case or the last known course to go for the government and even the children's homes to do. They'd prefer to integrate the child back into their home, into their family, into their roots. Yeah.
I hear you. We are due for a break, actually, at this moment. But also, when we come back, I'd want us to talk about perhaps the details, the description. How does it go for, you know, even just in your case, you can give us an example from your case. Were there something peculiar that you wanted, anything different? Because I want to believe, you know, by the time you're choosing to be a mother, even through giving birth, there's a way you're already picturing your child.
Yes,
so
there
does the same also apply when you're adopting? And how does it go with the agency? What does the law say, for instance, and how did you go about it?
No.
All right, time for that breather. We recoil with plenty more of this conversation, so stay with us. Welcome back, and this morning I have created First Time with Lydia Ndiho, who is a wealth manager, of course, talking to us on matters and issues of parenting and child adoption and everything you need to know in this particular space. Now, just let's get into what I wanted us to talk about before you took that break. So, details, specificity, descriptions, does the same apply when you want to adopt a child, and how does it go?
Yes, it does. So in the form that you fill, they'll ask you for a description of a child.
This is like on the onset?
On the onset. So what do you want this child to look like? Do you want them to match your color of eyes, the hair? Maybe you want curly hair. I mean, really, you're allowed to be really descriptive. Do I want twins? Do I want a boy? Do I want a girl? Do I want special needs, a special needs child? Do I want, for me, I requested a child who has asthma or something like that, because at least that I understand. So what special needs do you want this child to have? You might want a child who has some sort of condition that you're comfortable dealing with. So they will ask you all such questions. Ethnicity is hard, because sometimes if this child was picked, you wouldn't know. And usually we don't know the mothers. In Kenya, adoption is closed, so you won't know who the mother of the child is, especially if the child was collected from the streets. So if this child was collected from the streets, how will you know ethnicity. But there's some people who will go down to the nitty-gritty of ethnicity. But most times it's just not possible because these are children who've been abandoned. So most of the time, tracing ethnicity is literally
quite difficult.
Yeah.
All right. What do you mean by in Kenya adoption is closed?
So in Kenya, we do not have, our law does not allow us to interact with the family that's giving you the child.
Unlike how it is in the West?
And like in the US, where the adoptions are open, where the birth mother will meet the adoptive mother and they'll exchange contacts, and you'll see a lot of, like these children know their roots. In Kenya, this child, you will tell the child if, we advocate for, tell the child that they're adopted. However, they most likely will learn about their origins when they turn 21, because then they can request for their file, their adoption file. But even on that file, there's some people who you won't find any details. Yeah,
like if they were collected from the street at
all you will
2
know,
days or
yes,
3 days.
all you will know is that you were collected from some gutter somewhere. But even if it is a mother offer where the mother and the father have given up their parental rights to this child, when you give up your parental rights as a mother offer and a father offer, because both parents usually do need to give up their rights, I who is adopting your child will never meet you or know you.
Is it a good thing or a bad thing as you juxtapose that with what happens in the West? Because you've just said, like, there it's really open. You will know even the grandfather, for instance, of the child you are taking. But when you come down to Africa and Kenya specifically, you are like the first parents.
Yes.
Is it a good thing or a bad thing in your own analysis, also from your experience?
I think from my experience, it's a good thing, because then truthfully I don't think I want the child to know what her story is until she's at an age she can understand her story. Because in Kenya our adoptions are not, the kids who are free for adoptions rarely are they mother offers. It is children who are either thrown into a pit latrine,
so
picked from the street.
It is in the West.
Yeah. So there's no birth mother per se for her to trace. So I'm like, do I really want her to know that she was picked from the streets at 2 days? No, let's wait until she's at a certain age and she can actually process the information. Because a lot of us, even if you can't take care of your kids, your sister will take care of them, your brother will. We are very community oriented nation. So by the time we're getting to a point where this child now literally is in the system, all other things have failed. So if it's a community-wise, relatively, it has failed. It has failed.
That
that child is going to a children's home.
All right, I hear you. And just allow me to ask this, Lydia. You just said that even while you're having your list, your description, you requested for a child who has asthma. One would imagine that if you are choosing to adopt, unlike when you're giving birth, you could have the options to actually say, I want the finest things in life. Like I want a child disease-free, like healthy. Why did you decide on that?
Why? Truthfully, it was just, at least I know how to handle that one. And for me, in my mind, I was like, it has to be a child that, I don't think I was looking for perfection. That's it. I wasn't looking for perfection. And I knew, most likely, if you're a child with asthma, the likelihood of you being adopted is also not very high. Because, childhood asthma comes with its own eczema, your skin is having issues, your breathing is difficult. There's some kids who they play in dirt and they have the cough of a lifetime. So I was like, let's do something that I'm comfortable with. This child doesn't have to be perfect. But a lot of people who've adopted in the community, have adopted perfectly well children, and those children are now thriving. So it depends. I think you also do a lot of soul searching. What do you want? I know people who have adopted special needs children, and me, I'm like, you are my hero. Because you'd have picked a perfectly healthy child.
You had the choice.
You had the choice.
Like when you are
giving birth. But this lady will choose that I want a special needs child, and they'll pick a child either with autism or cerebral palsy, as in, you know, this very involving type of thing.
Yeah.
And you see these children in our community thriving, and they're happy, and you're like, so to each person, you choose your...
Yeah. I mean, even the good word of the Lord says that whatever burden he allows you is because, you know, he has well equipped you for it, and you can actually handle it regardless. Whether it's coming naturally or you really literally have to make a choice on it. All right, so talk to me about the cost, even just for someone who's watching and maybe perhaps even they've given birth to children and they feel like, I'd also want to adopt much as already given birth, or someone who's really been like in your journey and they really can't quite. What really is the cost? How is it attached to it, and how do you plan even for it?
Okay, so you have a cost that you pay the adoption agency, which is a processing fee. The government put a cap on it. I think it is now 12,500 shillings. However, we have we have a government adoption agency.
Wait, so this 12,000 is what you pay the agency to do all these processes?
Yes.
For you? All right, okay.
So make sure that the child is free for adoption, make sure the paperwork is correct. Actually, literally, they source the child from wherever. So as I was telling you, you might be in Nairobi and your child has been found in Kisumu, you will travel to Kisumu. You might be in Kisumu and the child has been found in Mombasa, you will travel to Mombasa and see the child. It's never domiciled to your county. So the adoption agency has to do all this paperwork and stuff. So you understand it's an administration cost. However, we have a government adoption agency that does it for free. However, their waiting list, on the other hand, is very long.
You'll really wait.
You'll wait. Their waiting list is 2 to 5 years. So you'll wait a while. But for them, it's free because the government, you know, subsidizes the cost.
Okay.
So, and then after that, now the legal cost. So going back to my process. So once the child was found, we went and picked her. So when we picked her, first there's bonding. So you take some time off work and you go bond with this child for about 5 to 7 days.
Whichever place the
child is. So you bond, you make sure that you're comfortable, you and her or you and him can get along. Because it also has to click. Like, I met my daughter and I knew she was the one. As in, you didn't need to tell me anything. But there are some people, it doesn't do that. It doesn't click like that. So you take the child. If you want to do, like, you want to do a test on the child, like for some people, they want to do a HIV test and stuff like that. You're allowed to do that during those 5 to 7 days. And then you take the child home. And you start your journey with this child.
So this is just 1 week of bonding?
1 week of bonding, then you now have what they call supervised visits for 3 months. So for those 3 months, the agency is checking on you and the children's home is checking on you to just make sure you guys are okay. If you're having challenges, they help you deal with the challenges, be it feeding, be it... Because also this child has just had to adjust to a lot. As much as you're adjusting, even the child is adjusting, you know? So it's the little things. Like for my daughter, I remember when she came, she was not a hugger. She was like, this hugging business that my mother...
How would you tell? She was...
She just stood coil. She's like, why you fall just in my space? All over me. But now, she's all over. She's a hugger. She hugs everyone. She wants to hang out with everyone. She'll come and cozy next to you. Then she would be like, let me play. You know. So you notice slight differences as time goes by. When she came, she liked milk. She didn't like food much. Now you should see her. She can't stand milk. She eats whatever she wants to eat. So the changes, as you're growing up, as she's growing up, you see the changes. So the first 3 months are challenging because she's also adjusting to you, adjusting to your routine, adjusting to a new environment. But then you find a routine, it starts working, you're okay. So the children's agency that you use to adopt, the adoption agency, will write your report, which will now take...
This is after how long?
3 months.
After 3 months.
When they're confident that you guys have settled and bonded, it can take a little longer, but they need to be comfortable that you guys have settled and bonded. Then they write you semi-report and a letter that you now take to your lawyer. So legal fees in Kenya are a bit tricky, but you can pay. For most lawyers I have met, you can pay in installments.
Okay.
I think family lawyers are a bit more friendly in that way. Or you can represent yourself. So different lawyers have come together and have a self-presentation where you just go to court and present yourself, because adoption is straightforward. The police report has already been done. All the other reports have been done. So it's just you explaining your case to a judge.
Okay.
So for us, we paid our legal fees, we paid it in installments. It took us about 8 months to get through the court process. Why? Truthfully, we went to court on the year that we were having elections, and the elections petitions were many.
So disclaimer, if you're thinking of this, avoid
please,
election year.
Yes, because it takes a little longer, because if the judges, you see, the same judges who run family court have jurisdiction over elections. So that year, because the election petitions were many, family court judges were opted into that process. It doesn't take too long when they're out, but still there's a backlog that now they catch up with. So that was it. So it was 8 months. Then now we started the other process, which is getting a birth certificate.
Just as you would
any other child, with your names and everything else.
All right, so clearly there's a cost quite attached to it. That's why there's a lot of preparation that needs to be put in place by the time you're deciding you're doing this. But also, let me just backtrack on something that you said, and this is in respect to bonding, the first time bonding, that you already identified the child. This is the child that you want with the various descriptions that you've already given. You've been told they're in Mombasa, you are in Nairobi, so you have to travel down there for that 1 week. So in the event you've actually gone there and you realize after 2 days there's no click, what does the process dictate?
So you will call back your social worker at the adoption agency and say that this is not working. Let's continue the search.
Just like that?
Just like that. Because you also don't want to pick a child that you're not comfortable with. I've seen situations where someone has picked a child and in 3 months they can't, so they take the child back.
And you can imagine they've already been in that environment.
So if, truthfully, if you are not bonding with this child, which is normal, it's okay, we accept it. Just talk to your adoption agency, your social worker will be like, okay, that's fine. She'll talk to the home and the process will continue. Like the search will continue for you. The search will continue.
Now let's come back home to the family aspect. At least for you, you know, your partner, both of you are in consensus and in agreement. This is what you want to do. And also good enough for you, your close family members, they're not like, you know, in Africa, in Kenya, we don't do things such as this. You have to be, you know, at least for you it was positive in that regard. But from even the friends, extended family, what is the best time to start telling them that based on the circumstance, this is what we are going with?
So you can choose. You can choose to tell them earlier so that they get rid of all their biases by the time they're coming back into your space. Or they can see the child and ask you questions. So depending on how you want to approach it. For both of us, it was easier because the only buy-in we needed was both parents on both sides, and that was it. After that, we're like, the rest of you will see the child and we'll know the child came. However, as time went by, now someone would ask me a question and I would, you know, explain what adoption is. There's a lot of bias. There's a lot of mtoto ni wa kununuliwa, huyo alinunua wapi, as in there's all those nasty comments. So before those nasty comments come your way, you either choose, am I going to say it earlier, so that there's no
any form of negativity,
or you choose now. When they see the child, They're like, oh, you got a child.
So
yes.
for you did say early enough, and the reception was very positive.
Yeah. So for
even
us,
from those extendeds who are asking you earlier on, what is wrong with you?
Those ones those ones we didn't tell them. They came. We called them when the child came. You know, there's that. There's a Kikuyu ceremony for welcoming the child. Those ones, now you call them for that ceremony so that they see the child and they get over it. And most of them will not have the guts to ask you, when you were pregnant and I didn't know. I think a lot of them figured out much later that she was adopted. But before,
so you just deal with it. I mean,
you deal with it.
It's a choice I made.
Yes, and we are okay with the choice.
With the
yeah.
choice. What was the most difficult part in all this, particularly when it comes to the adoption bit?
I think one is the adjustment. So as I was telling you, you have 9 months to adjust to a pregnancy. You know that this is my expected due date. You know, there's a sort of certainty.
You have a whole 9 months to sort of prepare.
There's certainty. I know the day. I kind of know the particular time. But with adoption, there's no certainty. You can actually wait 1 year. You can wait 3 months. You can wait 4 years. But then now when the call comes that you go bond, you only have 7 days to get this child home. So it means getting clothes. You know, the parenting part. I think that usually the adjustment is hard. Or you better prepare for it, both financially and mentally, because literally you don't have the 9 months. You don't have a certain date. Like for us guys, you see, we were told in February, just wait. And in Kenya, truthfully, it's harder to adopt a girl than a boy. The wait is longer for a girl than a boy.
It's harder to adopt a girl than it is for a boy?
You wait longer to adopt a girl than to adopt a boy.
What has gender got to do with the adoption?
Don't ask. Most people want to adopt girls, they don't want to adopt boys. So the boys are much more in the system than the girls.
So this is why.
This is why.
Okay, makes sense.
So you will wait, you'll be told, oh, you know, Lydia, this can be a long wait. So after a while, you even stop calling your social worker. You're like, he'll call me when things are working out. So by the time she's calling you to when you need to get there, bond with the child, pick the child and come back home, at most you have 2 weeks, at most. So it's also that uncertainty where you're like, when will this phone call come? When will they call me? Well, I wonder where the child will be from. As in, there's all these thoughts running through your mind. So that was a bit more difficult. Then just the adjustment to motherhood. I think I believe that if you don't have a good support system, the adjustment is a bit crazy. But all in all, you take it in. Because the child comes with unique needs. And they were in an institution. Always remember that a children's home, as much as it is loving and caring, it's an institution. They have set bedtimes, set eating times. Because the home needs to run efficiently, okay? So that child is going to also have to adjust. So for both of you, the adjustment is a bit, it's bumpy, but it works. Yeah.
I hear you. So then we are in agreement, and we know that in Kenya it's closed in terms of adoption. So chances of perhaps meeting the birth mother are very slim, or even slimmer than slim. But we have those peculiar cases. There always can't be an indifferent.
Yes. Yes.
Even just from you perhaps going around, doing your research, going through the process of adoption, has this ever occurred? Have you ever, excuse me, have you ever perhaps just, had that case that a couple or a parent or an individual adopted a child, and then 3 years later, the birth mother just originated from someone, they said, I want my child?
There are a few cases. And most of the time...
So they actually do exist?
They do exist, yes. Okay. And most of the time they do exist because the person didn't follow due process. Kenyans like shortcuts. We really like them. Shortcuts make us happy. Because you're like, why am I waiting 2 years? And I can, I know someone. That I know someone will cost you. And especially impact that child. But if you can prove but your child was taken from you in a malicious way, and you can prove that you want your child back, the judge has a right to revoke adoption. And just...
This is from the High Court?
Now from the High Court, and then now both parents will be asked to meet and discuss. Because you as a parent who adopted the child, unless you were perhaps part of the scheme, the judge will give you an option of continuing to talk to this child, and I mean, you come up with a co-parenting
so you'll
type of
with the original,
yes, original birth mother or the father. However, if you were part of the scheme, then you may never have access to that child again. But that's usually a judgment call. The judge will, again, in Kenya, the law is about the best thing for the child. It's always in the best interest of the child. So if in the best interest of the child is for this child to continue staying with you and the birth mother has access, fine, or the birth mother takes custody of the child. But those cases are fewer than, they're so few. But it's, if you trace the roots of that case, most of the time, either someone dropped the ball, either the police didn't do a good job in the investigations, there was something that happened. And for this woman to have traced her child to you, because it basically means she's gone on a journey to trace this child. Due diligence was not done. Due diligence was not properly done as it should.
How about, at what point do you now tell the child
that they're adopted?
Yes. And how do you start that conversation? So, let me just pick it up with you on that one. Maybe you can just tell us also from your own experience, and at what point you prepare, when you start now telling the child that, yes, I'm your mother, but not like your mother, you know? How do you even prepare, first of all, you as a person, mentally, before you even now go to that child? How does this work?
So, I think for each child it's different. We've learned that over the years, that each child is uniquely them. There's some children who you'll tell and they'll be like, okay, that's fine, that was news, thank you. But there are many things you can do. One, as a parent, read a lot, so that you learn from other people's experiences. Because you also don't want to go and fumble and make the child feel a little less. For my daughter and I, we watch a lot of cartoons that have that theme. So the child was brought, there's this cartoon she likes called Tots, where these children are brought home by a pelican, and they're dropped at their parents' houses. So in her mind, that happens. It's normal. So and then we have this whole conversation about bone of the tummy and bone of the heart. So depending on the approach that you know your child best. So for us guys, we are more of a movie type, lesson type thing. So we do Bible stories on adoption. We talk about how Jesus adopts us into his family. As in, we have a whole lot of conversation around it.
This is like in preparation?
In preparation. Okay. And then now she kind of starts figuring out things. And then once you tell her, just be prepared for, like, there are usually so many questions. So she'll ask you, and my other mother is where? What happened? So prepare in your mind a sanitized version of this story, because you also don't want to give her, she's 6, like my daughter is 6, you can't give her stories of, you know, you were found on the streets, you were dumped. No. So you'll tell her, no, your mommy couldn't take care of you, but then she really loved you, and, you know, she gave you up. And we welcomed you, we love you, we accept you for who you are. As in, there's a lot of affirmation. You keep affirming and reaffirming and affirming and reaffirming, especially about the loving and the care, and that, you know, she's important to you. Okay. Yeah.
I hear you. I hear you. You know, it's really quite a journey, but this is a path you choose.
Yes.
And heaven just makes it easy for you.
Yes.
At the end of the day. And thank you so much for coming and just also sharing with us your story. We greatly appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Yeah, right.
That is Lydia Ndiho, who's a wealth manager, of course, talking to us about parenting and child adoption, and of course also just using her own personal story and the journey she's been through and she's gone through in this process of child adoption as well as parenting. Good place to end this conversation, and ultimately Good Morning Kenya. We now want to sit ground to that particular launch happening in Tatu City. That is the official launch of Twiga Foods Distribution Center. President Dr. William Ruto is also in attendance in this particular event. We just want to cross over there and listen in.